Dopo la crisi, continueremo con questo sistema economico di ingiustizia sociale e di disprezzo per la cura dell'ambiente, del creato, della casa comune.
Oh, hello, welcome everybody to this webinar. My name is Maria Guadalupe Martina. I come from Argentina, and I am a senior participant of the village Women for Economy within the economy of Francesco. And this village is the organizer of this webinar, which has the title Women and Empowerment, Finding Our Way in Work, Care and Self-Enhancement. So this, as I said, this webinar takes place in the context of this village, Women for Economy, where we talk about, or we work on different issues related to the role of women in economic activity, in labor market, and also the role of women in the development of a human-centered economy. In this sense, the topic of this webinar will be very important for the work of the village, and we have the pleasure to have here Professor Consuelo Corradi, who will talk about a topic which is central for our discussions, which is related to motherhood and also the conceptions of feminist theories that had shaped this conception in the last years, and she will give us some insights that may help us to revise these visions and to have a critical view and to develop our work in this with more, with other conceptions. Professor Corradi is professor of sociology at LUMSA University. She studied in La Sapienza. She was also faculty member of the University of Rome, La Sapienza, University of Perugia, and Roma Trade University. She has also international experience, and she specializes in theories and critique of modernity and feminism, violence against women, femicide. She has a wide range of scientific publications, national and international ones, and she has held visiting positions in different European universities. So it is an honor to have you here and to contribute to our work. We are very happy. And we also will have two young discussants who are members of the village. They are Diletta Pasqualotto from Italy. She has an MBA in international, she has a master in international management and an MBA with specialization in leadership, both from the University of London. And she works as international trade department analyst, and she's a mother, which is very important in the context of this seminar. And then we have Cristina Vicelli from Brazil. She's a PhD candidate at the Federal University of Rio Grande do Sul, where she also obtained her Master of Economics with emphasis in development economics. She was a visiting scholar at the Department of Gender and Sexuality at York University as part of her PhD research. And her research interests include labor market, economic development, feminism and relations of gender and race. And she has also publication and participation in national and international events. So thank you all for being here, for your contributions. I think we will have a very rich discussion here. And one important point for this webinar, we also want the audience to be involved. So after the presentation of Professor Corradi, Cristina and Diletta will make their comments and questions. And then we will gather the questions of the audience, which you can write on the YouTube chat or in Zoom, those who are in Zoom. And then Professor Corradi will give us a feedback and we will go on with the discussion with all contributions together. So Professor Corradi, I give you the floor now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really delighted to be here with you. It's a great pleasure. It's a great honor to be able to speak at this webinar. My topic is actually motherhood and the empowerment of women. Please consider that I'm speaking as a citizen of Italy and a citizen of Europe. And I'm saying this because I am aware that the world is actually much bigger than Italy and much bigger than Europe. So what I say may not be recognized or may not be the case in the countries where you live. And so one of the aims of the webinar, if it's possible, is also to try and compare thoughts, remarks, observations from different parts of the world. But my vantage point is this. Even though I must say I've lived in other places in the world and I recognize they are all very important. Why I say in the West, why did I begin with this remark on the Western world? Because I think that feminism was actually born in the Western world. And in particular, the Western kind of feminism was very strong and influenced other regions. It influenced and it was a great contributor in changing women's lives. I would not be a university professor if feminism did not strive for having full rights of women to go to school, to go to college. And I understand that today we may take all this for granted. I say, well, good, that's good, finally. But it was a long way. I mean, we had to strive. And I think that feminism has done some good things. At the same time, motherhood and feminism have not been in peace one with each other because Western feminism in particular supported a notion of autonomy, a notion of independence, of women's independence that actually where motherhood did not fit. Mother in particular, and what I have in mind right now is authors of what is called second wave feminism. I'm not going to deal with this right now, but because I don't want to make a very theoretical conference, I'd rather my aim here is to have a few thoughts on the subject and then give the floor to you. But the authors I have in mind have really seen motherhood as an obstacle to independence. So motherhood was an obstacle, it was a hindrance. And actually, there are some authors for whom motherhood was more. They were harshly critical of motherhood. There are, in particular, what is called radical feminism. So what I think in the Western world, we were sort of accustomed to think that women had to really be first, do what male children did, which meant, you know, going to school, get yourself a good job, and then be independent, and then consider your choices. And but this has changed. This situation, I think, has changed, and my view is that if it hasn't changed enough, we should strive and to have further changes. What changed that picture? What changed the view that empowered women must first be independent, and then motherhood is, you know, one of the options available to them? I think that there are two things that brought enormous cultural changes to the picture. One was artificial reproductive techniques, ART. Today, with artificial reproductive techniques, infertile women, single women, infertile couples can become mothers, parents. And surrogacy in particular has shown that you need the body of a woman if you want to become a mother or a father. I am completely against surrogacy. I have done research on the topic a lot, so if that is interesting, I may answer your questions. But my point here is that surrogacy was an important, and arts and artificial reproductive techniques completely changed the big picture of emancipation, because they made it very clear that we need the biology of women, and societies need the biology of women, and that the biology of women was not in the picture of emancipation at all. Biology was the last thing to resort to. The other thing, and I will speak about it a little more, is motherhood studies. Motherhood studies are done by researchers who are basically, most of them are women, and they are basically sociologists and anthropologists. Motherhood studies is an area of academic research which has flourished in particular in the last 20 years. And they have brought to our attention a number of data, qualitative data in particular, interviews, ethnographies, showing what mothers do, how mothers feel, how they define themselves, what are the cultural practices of motherhood across the world. It's a beautiful field of research, and you can find examples of research in almost every country, in almost every, even, you know, beyond the country level, the small places of one country. And if you compare that array of studies, you understand who mothers are and what mothers do, which is something that feminism was never really interested in. So I'm going to answer this question. What do mothers do and who they are? Well, mothers are human beings, just as I'm not going to say that they are better than human beings who are not. That's not my point. My point is not putting mothers, you know, as a sort of superheroes or a sort of a super women. I know that mothers juggle between worlds a lot, but mothers are human beings who put the need of other people in front of their own needs. They put the children's needs before their own. That's a first very important feature of motherhood, because it brings into the picture a consideration that, you know, self-enhancement is necessary and possible, but it's not something that you deal with your ego alone. You are embedded in a relationship of intersubjectivity. You are not measuring time, you're not measuring money to take care of your children. You're not paid for that. Mothers are not paid, and they not measure what they achieve with their children in terms of what they achieve in their work, if they have a work. So this is an area of our lives, of women's life, that it's not based on self-interest. And this is extremely important for Western societies, where 90% of what we do in Western society is based on self-interest. You know, how much money do I make in my job? Is that enough? I mean, I am well paid. I am paid enough for what I do. What is my work shift? We make all these kind of remarks in our lives, and but motherhood is not based on the area of self-interest. And the other remark on motherhood is that you are, as a mother, embedded in a web of intersubjectivity. You define yourself as a mother and in relationship with somebody else, with another being, and sometimes with two or three other beings. Motherhood is an irreversible bond. It is an irreversible bond of love. And again, that seems to me very important in societies, Western societies, but maybe not only Western societies, when the bonds are very fluid. You know, bonds, even bonds of love, are established and then broken very easily. Now, when mothers lose a child, so when that bond is broken, mothers do not only lose a child, but when they're interviewed in motherhood studies, they say they have lost part of who they are. So you see that from the words, from the practices, and from the experiences of mothers, what we have across the world, in all the societies and all the cultures, it is a dynamic of intersubjectivity, a definition of who you are in terms of values and not interests. Am I a good mother? That is a constant question for mothers. Is this good for my child? So values, not interests, are part of the picture, and the interest or the definition of what good for the other is what I take as a consideration of who I am as part of my picture. I've seen these features not only in the West, but as I said, in motherhood studies across the world. There are studies that are done in Peru, in Italy, in the United States, in Africa, and really across societies, what you find many differences, of course, how mothers, how to raise a child. The practices are very different. Food is very different. Sometimes even the definition of what is, what is a girl, what is a boy, what is a girl supposed to do, what is a boy supposed to do, what is a mother supposed to teach to a boy or a girl, that may be very different across societies. But I found that the feature I just said, and to repeat, is being a moral subject, a definition of who you are as a mother being, as part of who you are as a human being, beyond the logic of self-interest, intersubjectivity, that features are present across cultures and across societies. So to conclude, I'm now going to my conclusions. If this is acceptable, if this is true, if what motherhood studies say, if what mothers say in their words, I think we should take them in consideration. We should really listen to what they say. And if we do, we have to change the big picture of emancipation. And to think about women's emancipation, not only about having an education and getting a good job, that is part of emancipation. I'm not overlooking it. I'm going for difficult things. I want to take that and the other into consideration. And this is why I say I want the big picture of emancipation to change. So I would like young women in particular, women who still have the option of being a mother, to have that option. I don't want to force them to be mothers. I just want to be sure that they have that option and to be a self-defining human beings, because I'm sure that if they have that option and they choose the option, they will become different human beings than what they are before. I don't want to give you a sugar-coated image of what a mother is. A mother may be very conflicting within herself. She may be, struggling a lot of time, even daily, between options and not knowing what to do. But I think that she has a sort of a polar star in front of herself that is guiding. And to answer to, start answering to what Pope Francis is actually asking, giving economy a soul, and defining the village of women for economy. I think that those features that I found in motherhood can help us redefine what kind of soul can our societies and economies have. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm now turning the floor to the discussants.
So thank you, Professor Corradi, for your discussion, which I found very, very compelling. So my first comment and question regards the reasons why feminist theories, some of feminist theories, see motherhood as a source of disempowerment. Well, there is a significant amount of management and leadership studies that analyze the skills and the traits of women once they become mothers. It has been found, for instance, that their emotional intelligence and ability to negotiate increase. They share also more collective organizational consciousness, and they are more empathic with employees and lead with more vision. All these traits are recognized as transformational leadership, which is the preferred kind of leadership nowadays. Another point is that we have to remember that we are living in a world that for centuries has been built around men's needs, without considering women's needs. And some of these feminist theories that see motherhood as a source of disempowerment seem to address women to conform to male standards, to a patriarchal society. For example, if you're in the peak of your career and get pregnant, general feminist thinking seems to lead women to get an abortion or to give up the child for adoption just because women have to pursue a male path, a male way of living. So some feminist theories, instead of looking for new sources, new ways of working and living for both women and men, as you will mention in your paper, they want women to adapt to a man world. For that reason, don't you think that instead of being progressive, some of these theories are rather conservative and radical? Then my second question and comment regards the origin of motherhood struggles. So many origins of the struggles are already being recognized, for example, from the point of view of the society, because we have a patriarchal legacy. We can see it also from the institutional level, where, for example, government doesn't found family, don't give financial help to family, or doesn't promote the paternity leave. We can see the struggle also from the organizational level. For example, when women and mothers don't have collaborative employers. However, while I was interviewing many women and mothers for one of my research, I perceived that many struggles related to the balanced work-personal life were embedded in women themselves, that were a lot of unconscious biases. For example, many of them grew up seeing their models taking care of all the housework. And for them, as daughters, it is the normality to carry to carry the weight of the householdings on their shoulders without asking for help to the partner. So why do you think women struggle to move away from stereotypes? These are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Professor Corradi. Hi, Diletta, and the organization of Francesco Economy, and who is accompanying us on YouTube. This is a very important subject, and I'm very glad to be invited to be here. It's a great pleasure to be with you and discussing with also with Diletta. I am feminist economics. I'm doing my PhD in economy. I'm finishing my PhD. My thesis is about the value of unpaid care work. So this is very important issue for me too. So it's very interesting to be discussing with you today. So I will begin my my first question. One of the most important work, as you said, for the reproduction of our society is the motherhood and also all the work of care. In your studies, you say that the motherhood is viewed as a deep romanticized way, demanding more maternal instincts rather than intelligence and other skills. This romanticization of motherhood is very useful for the maintenance of the invisibility of this work that is seen in our society as part of the women nature. And here in Brazil, this is very important because the law of abortion is very restrictive, and there is many women and also little girls that died trying to do it. And there is a famous sentence from a feminist called Silvia Federici that represents this lack of the visibility of the work of motherhood. She say, what you call love, we call unpaid work. Because the women that make this work have a profound penalty in their entire lives. as Nancy Ford, that we have pleasure to be with us at the Francesca Economy this week, said and presented for us. And this inequality becomes deeply, profoundly, because with the diminishing of the family wages, the high entrance of the women in the labor market, the demographic, climate, and family changes, and at the same time with the diminishing of the state and the social researchers resources, for care. We are passing through a care crisis in the world. This crisis is described by the International Labour Organization in 2018, is the resulting in an increasing deficit of care for the children and the elderly persons. And also we could say that is invalidating the reproduction of the human life, impacting most in the poor and developing countries. So my first question is, what do you think that we could do to change this reality? Why does the motherhood is treated just for women responsibility, not for the whole society? And my second question, in your paper, you critique part of the feminist thinking in the 70s that undervalue the motherhood work and also the technologies for the reproduction of life. Considering that the women and girls, mainly in the poor countries, have a high incidence of poverty in time, not just poverty for earnings, and this impact their entrance in the labor market, access to studies, and dependence in violent relationship. Do you think that the changes in social norms, increasing the sharing of care work time between whole society, and also the development of technologies that can help these women to increase the quality of time that they spend for motherhood, could decrease the women's poverty? Thank you.
So thank you very much, the three of you. Thank you, Professor Corradi, for your very interesting presentation. And yeah, also Cristina and Diletta for their insightful comments and questions. And shall we now ask if there are questions from the audience? And then you, well, as we said at the beginning, you are all invited to ask questions via the YouTube chat. So we can include them. There are okay, there are no questions yet.
Okay.
When so they appear, they are going to send me. So you can start and then we...
Okay, I will start talking a little bit more then. And so I will start answering to my two discussants. Diletta, what are the reasons why feminists did not include motherhood? Well, I mean, think about that time. I mean, I was a teenager at that time, so I have a few, personal memories. Although I was not a feminist at that time. Maybe I'm not a feminist even today. But I think the main reason was that there was one single pattern for human beings. There were no other models. The only model was the individualistic model, at least in the West. And, it all began, feminism began in the West. It would be very interesting to start writing the history of women's emancipations in countries beyond the West, because I'm sure that we will find good instances. But right now, that history has to be written, at least as far as I know. And what is written already is the history of the Western feminism. And in that time, so I'm speaking about 50 years ago, the only pattern we knew was the very individualistic, self-centered human being, basically a male. And this human being had a very liberal, but theoretically liberal foundation. He was a free man with free, recognized the freedom to act, recognized the freedom to get rich, recognized the freedom to go to school, and so on and so forth. I think that pattern did not even think about a man as part of a community. Even for men, the dominant way of being, the best way of being, was to follow that path. So what feminism did was basically take that model and transfer it to the women's world without recognizing that women could have different needs, different ways of looking at the world, and even, I would say, a different philosophical, or let's say moral attitude towards life. It was, say, the liberal individual, which was so popular in the United States, in Anglo-American countries in particular, and then it spread in other Western countries. In Italy, for instance, in the 1960s, 70s, we still had a pattern for women, which was very traditional. I mean, women, when they grew up, women were expected to become mothers, and that was main. And then, if they had time, if their family allowed, they could also study. So I can understand, even though I don't agree with that, but I can understand why it happened. Now, I think even the interesting thing is that even for men, that pattern is criticized, and it would be very interesting to see, after we have this chat, if for fathers what I said would apply, because I suspect that for fathers too, even though in different ways, for fathers too, being part of being in an intersubjective relationship with their children is a very important way to self-enhance yourself, and not only think about you as an ego. But that's a different talk, of course. Did women have to adapt to a male world? Yes, that I think that even today, I mean, the struggle for women today is not to adapt to a male world if practices and values of that male world need to be changed. If they are, if they're proven to be useful and just, if they're based on utility and justice, then okay. But if we are criticizing them because they are unjust and sometimes even not useful, or useful only for a very limited number of people, then we have to change those practices and those models for men too. So when Diletta asked the question, do you see that as conservative or progressive? I don't want to apply that binary notion, because I think that we have to conserve a few things, and we have to progress in other ways. So I'd like to keep in societies the importance of share responsibility in raising the children. And that is, I'm coming now to Christina's comments. The responsibility of raising the children is not only on women, should not only be on women's shoulders. However, the bond between the mother and her children should not be completely severed. You see, I am in all my chat, I've been trying to bring together elements that we tend to look as separate. I said I would like women to have the option, the concrete option of becoming mothers and at the same time going to school and have a good job. I would like women to discuss and criticize and change elements of the male world, but also accept what's good if there is good. And I would like children to be raised not only by women. I think that we need to conceive emancipation of women's emancipation as something that happens within a web of interrelationship. Okay, but I want also to defend the right of the mother not to be completely severed from her child. So yes, the mother should share responsibility with the father, and even with pet care work if she can afford it, or with grandparents, or with a small community. But in my view, I mean, it would be a mistake for her to go after other aims without just forgetting that she is also a mother, not only a mother, but also a mother. I think that for mothers, that is a mistake, and they are going to miss a lot that opportunity, you know, of living the experience of being mothers once their children will be away from home. It's very interesting what Diletta said about transformational leadership. I think we have too little of that. We have too little studies that tell us the particular skills that mothers acquire and that can be used in different contexts in a very useful way. You know, motherhood is a transformative experience, and I'm sure that when given the opportunity to be part of other environments besides their family, mothers can be very transformative in other environments too. Christina spoke about romantic love, you know, she said, I criticize the romantic love of the mother. And then she quoted a feminist who said, you know, in a little bit harsh way, love, what we call love is actually unpaid work. I think that we should, again, look at the complexity of being a mother. You know, being a mother is not jumping in joy 24 hours a day. It's a tiring thing. It's also conflicting. It's a conflicting experience. There is a woman, a French philosopher, who said, motherhood is a passion, and passion is never easy. You know, if we take that word literally, you know, passion is something that sometimes make us sad. It makes us unhappy sometimes. So I think that the life of mothers is not romantic, is not sugar-coated. It's definitely tiring, very engaging, conflicting. You have to bring together try to mediate between things that sometimes don't want to mediate. But I would never accept, of course, as a joke, reduce love to work, even to paid work. I mean, love and work are really different domains. And my hope is that mothers can enjoy both, and fathers too, by that matter. And the last question by Christina, do I think that technology can improve women's poverty? Definitely, yes. I think that technology can be used in a very positive way to improve the lives of poor women and of poor men too. But I think that we should not allow that women sell their wombs for surrogacy, so because they are poor. I don't think we should legalize that practice. I think that we have to strive so that poor women have options other than selling their wombs for surrogacy. Other options that are viable, that are safer for their health, and that are ethical, because surrogacy is definitely an unethical practice. So poverty is not an excuse, but not for them, for governments, because this is how governments explain the legalization of the practice. They say, oh, okay, but there are poor women out there, and they don't know what to do, and they're at a home, and maybe they can become pregnant for other women and then give away the children. This is how, governments actually justify the practice. I think we should strive so that governments work hard to give poor women other options than that.
Okay. Thank you very much for this interesting feedback. And we have one comment from the audience that I would like to read. From Maria Gabriela. She says, thank you very much for these reflections. Me too, as a scholar, I'm researching about feminist economics and feminist accounting, and I share my experience as scholar and mother. But she didn't pose any question. But
okay. Well, you as a scholar, economist, and mother, I'm sure that you know how hard it is. We're not offering easy recipes here. I am aware of that. I'm rather going for the complexity than simplicity. I am aware of that. But sometimes I see that, simplicity is too simplistic. And I'm sure that it would be interesting to know from you how those two words, being an economist, so I assume sometimes out of your home doing some work, and at the same time being a mother, how those two worlds interact. That would be very interesting. If you have some remarks on that, would be very interesting. And while you think about it, let me tell you what motherhood studies say. I remember now a book where there were the researcher interviewed women with very important pet jobs, and they told the interviewer how they really every day sort of establish priorities, you know, okay, today, what is the priority today? And sometimes it worked, and sometimes they had to review priorities. So this flexibility in reorganizing the day shift, their family day shift, sometimes even their work day shifts, because sometimes they had to, you know, call the office and say, sorry, I can't come. I'm working from home because my child is sick. This flexibility made them very good managers. Because they were much more flexible than their male partners at work, who, you know, said, okay, so we have a meeting at 9, at 9:30 we do this, then at 10 we do that. And that's not how the world works. The world needs more flexibility, and they were able to, you know, understand that and implement it. I don't know if Diletta and Christina have comments on this.
Well, I, of course, agree with you that we need flexibility. Above all, we need, as mothers and as workers, we need organization. We need to set up our priorities, as you all said. And therefore, we need flexibility. And at the end of the day, we have to find the balance. I think the most important word here is balance, both for women and men. We have to find the balance between families and work. We have to find the balance between householding, between men and women. That's, I think, the most important thing.
I have a lot of comments. I want to be here discussing with you for a long time because this subject is very interesting, and I think that you have a different opinion than mine, and this is interesting to share the different opinions too. But one thing that I was thinking when you was talking, Professor Corradi, is about the selfish, about from the feminist view, the Western feminist view, that is also criticized for the intersectionality of feminists that put in the table this thinking about the Black women's, the indigenous women's, and other poor women's that don't have the same opportunity to be rich, to have money, to take care of their children. And this is the majority of the women in the world. So when Diletta talks about balance, try to find some balance in life. But for the majority of the women in the poor countries and developing countries, this balance is very difficult because and this is because of the structure of our system that don't have imperatives to be a mother and to be what you want to be. So the system sells an idea that we are supposed to be what we want, but it's not true. For the majority of women, it's not true, and for majority of women, it's not true that they could be good mothers and could pay for the children's bills and other and the whole things that is take care of the children. And when the feminist economics make this criticize about how this love is sell like a free value in the markets, because the market appropriates this value from the motherhood. And it's not fair for the majority of the women in the world. So some women that have money must contract, may contract domestic employment or paid for care work in the market, but for the majority of women, it's not possible. So I think it's a huge problem that must be a problem for the whole society, not just for the motherhood and not just for the families think about.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Christina. Of course, I mean, I said I don't want to be simplistic. I don't want to be simplistic in regard to the topics you raised. I know that a woman who is poor, who has 1 or 2 children, who maybe is a single mother, who is a member of a minority or a community that is marginalized in her country. I mean, those are layers and layers on the shoulders of that person, and that can be very heavy. So, and those layers add up, you know, intersectionality, they crisscross. So it's very difficult for the members of those communities to have better lives for them, for their children. But my point here would be, you made it, I'm just going to repeat what you said. We should not be alone in this. I mean, governments are extremely important in this. And what can we say to government? I think we should say, when you're going to take policies in favor of women's emancipation, do not just take, you know, the liberal model and think that if you're giving that woman we just described a good enough job, a good enough salary, you're going to solve her problems and the problems of the society. That's not true. I mean, you, government, must have a wider picture of women's emancipation, where you are taking care of a range of needs, and part of the needs of that woman is being able to be a mother with her children. I don't have a recipe, again, because I'm not a member of the government, but if I were, that would be my struggle, you know, I would use intersectionality in my own policy making. I would try to balance, as Diletta said, you know, different spheres of life, family and work. That's important for men too. The picture of men's life is changing. We don't have many men speaking about them, but there will be more, because it's changed. Just as, you know, the lives of women is changing, their life is changing too. And so we need to balance, we need to find that balance in their lives too. I was struck a couple of weeks ago in Italy, a man who was very famous because he was the head of Fiat, you know, the big automotive company in Italy. He was the head of Fiat, the CEO, the manager, not the owner of Fiat, for many years. He died. He was an old man, and there in the TV, there was a video was aired with him interviewed a few years ago. He was already old, and the interviewer asks, "What you've had it all. I mean, you had a wonderful life. You met the presidents and the leaders of the world. You were the manager of the most important Italian industry. You are rich. You have a big family. So you know, you are, maybe he was 87, 90. He was already old, and so the interviewer said, "Is there anything you regret?" And he said, "Yes, I regret that I've never actually met my sons, my daughters, and my grandsons and my granddaughters." So, you know, getting ready for this webinar, I was struck by that comment, because even for that kind of person, it is important. So it is important for us all. It is important for people who do not have opportunities. It is important for people who have opportunities too. In motherhood studies, you find that a lot. I mean, I remember a piece, a very beautiful ethnographic piece with women in Cusco. You know, Cusco is a small town in Peru. And these women sell goods in the street of Cusco to tourists. And the researcher interviewed them and tried to understand what it means to be a mother. They are, again, single mothers, etc. And they said something similar to these men. They said, my children are top priority for me. All I do during the day is for my children. So we need to think about policy making to implement policies to fight poverty, not only in a neoliberal way, Okay, we're going to create jobs so everybody can work. That's okay, but we need a balance. We need a balance with families.
Thank you very much. There's a question here that I think it is related to this topic of policy making and the role of governments in all these issues. So I think it is interesting here. The question is from Inessa Salomon, and she says, do you consider basic yield or another type of social protection interesting? It must become with empowerment, but would it be the first step to women, mothers ending their remarked poverty?
What was it? Can you repeat the first part of the question? Do you consider
basic yield or basic income? I think.
Okay, basic income.
Yeah, or other type of social protection. Interesting.
It's an interesting question. I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer that, because to answer it in a proper way, you need to assess the results of those policies. Have basic income policies helped women and men go beyond poverty? If the answer is yes, then yes, I want basic income. If the answer is no, then no. I mean, I understand your remark. Since I've been struggling for almost an hour to convince you that the work of mothers, the experience of mothers is important, then why not giving mothers basic income so they can have an income and being a mother at the same time? It's like sound. But then I would need to know a little bit more, because, would that really be going beyond poverty? I don't know if or would that actually keep the woman in that condition, in a condition of poverty where actually a little money is coming in every month, but you're not really helped in any other way. You're not given any other option than that. I don't know. I would never make it that universal. If evaluation of basic income policies has some sound ground, then what I would say is that could be available, like for women who are not young, for women who cannot really have different options than that. I think that childcare is very important. Early childcare is very important. Good schools for early childhood can very important in sharing the responsibility of raising a child with somebody else. In Italy, for instance, we have one of the lowest fertility rates in the world. And one of the reasons demographers tell us is that we don't have good enough childcare, early childcare, like 0 to, for instance, 0 to 5. When a child is 5, then he or she goes to school, so the mother and the father have more time. But 0 to 5 is a very special age. So I think women in poverty, that is something that could benefit, you know, women of all classes could benefit from that. Do we want, Maria Guadalupe, do we want to turn that same question to Cristina and Diletta? Because, yeah, would you like to answer the question about basic income?
So about basic income, I will also add to your point, depends on which part of the world you are. Because if you're like in a Western world, basic income will be very helpful, as you well said, during to pay for early education, which in Italy, of course, is very, very expensive. And if you don't want to send the child to school, you have to pay for the nanny, which is also very, very expensive. However, I think that in other parts of the world, basic income may be helpful. Also because it has been found that some women have very poor education in finance. They don't know how to manage their finance, and basic income can be like the starting point for their independency. Of course, you need your partner to go on with the education of your children, of your financial income, of your family. But as women, you can start being independent with this, starting from this basic income. This is my point of view. It's very important to add the variables of geography and of the social point of view. Of course, Cristina will have better explanation under this point of view, depending on the geography, where this basic income come from.
I think that the basic income, as well as other public social politics, it is very important, not just for the developing countries, but for the whole world, because we are increasing our inequality in the whole world, and also the richer person, a rich person are increasing too much, then the poverty are increasing in the other side, and this is becoming to be a huge problem. And with this pandemic, we will see the results of this increasing of the inequality. Here in Brazil is the one of the countries with more inequality in the world. I think it's Brazil and Cambodia. So we know how is live in a very inequality way. So here we have a program. The name is a famous program. I think that is very famous in the world. The name is Bolsa Família. That is a cash transfer program for the women, and this make deep results in the deep and profound results in these families and in the women too, there are higher index of increasing the divorce, because these women are in the relationships, violent relationships, and these families don't have money and not to pay for food for their children, so they don't have money to save. They don't have money to buy food for the children in the day. It's poverty and hungry persons that live in our countries, and they must have the state and other public politics for there. So, and I think that with this pandemic, they will be an increasing of poverty, and also the increasing of rich persons. And we will have to think seriously in this basic income for the whole persons that have family work, and that don't have a work with that opportunities them to give this balance of life and time. Thanks.
So thank you very much. We have here also an answer from the person who posed the question. She says, thank you. It's really interesting to hear about your point of view. We are really discussing about universal basic income in Brazil and how it must develop for different groups of population. So it's similar. So I think we are getting to the end. I don't know if it's still something that you would like to add or comment, and if you would like to close this this wonderful discussion, I would say. So
well, I mean, this can be a closing point. I try to raise a number of problems, and my aim was basically to give myself and everybody some food for thought, as they say. I'd like the women for economy concept to be a complex concept, not a simplistic. I'm sure it's not. I mean, I'm sure it is not simplistic. But my point is that I really want to struggle that women for economy come not just, to mimic what has been done so far, but to change it for the better. And I think they are placed, very well placed by who women are, by their lives. They're very well placed to change things and not to accept models that worked years ago and only for 50% of the world population. Now, there is a difference. There is a difference in level between my talk, which was, I am aware it was more theoretical and more in terms of general remarks, and the more concrete questions that some of you made. And I know that, thought has to be transformed into practices. And what we can say at the end is, again, that, practices may be different when we travel in different parts of the world. And it's not like the recipe for chocolate cake, which works anywhere. I mean, policies in Brazil, in Italy, in Peru, in Cambodia, in other parts of the world are embedded into society, into culture, into political ideologies. So that must be taken into consideration. I think the world is big, it's diverse, and that diversity is very important.
So Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you for your contributions. I think this was really interesting and really throws a lot of light to our discussions in the group of Women for Economy. And I pick up something you said at the end of your presentation, that you related this village work to this idea of Pope Francis of giving a soul to the economy. And I think this to deepen on all these complexities and to have this more critical view helps us a lot to develop in that direction. So I want to thank each one of you, also those who participated from the audience, the team who cared about technical issues, and also the translators who are also participants of the economy, young participants of the economy, Francesco. So thank you very much. And
thank you, Maria Guadalupe, and thank you all of you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.